Okay, so Inyasha, in this segment, we are going to talk about the issue that everyone wants to hear about, which is when you can access money while you're still in service, where you access it from, how much you're going to receive. What are some of the questions that you've received on those topics?
So I've heard a lot of people asking about the seed capital. What exactly is that?
So the seed capital is an amount that gets placed into your savings component from 1 September, and it comes from the vested component that you were just talking about earlier. Obviously, if there was no seed capital, then no one would have any balance in their savings component on 1 September because no one would have made any contributions yet. So in order to place some money in the savings component that would allow people to take a withdrawal at the beginning of September, it's necessary to seed capital from the vested component. And that the amount that's seeded is prescribed in the Income Tax Act. And it's quite a simple formula. It's 10% of whatever you have in your vested component, which is your retirement savings up to 31 August. But there is a maximum limit, which is 30,000 Rand. So if you've got more than 300,000 Rand, you can still only have 30,000 Rand allocated as seed capital to your savings component. No matter how much more than 300,000 Rand you have, that is your maximum. But if you have less than 300,000 Rand, then it will only be 10% of what you have in that vested component, what you've already accumulated up until 31 August, that will be seeded into your savings component. And that will be your starting balance in your savings component.
So if I have 200,000 saved up as at the 31st of August, 2024, what am I actually able to take out as a savings withdrawal benefit if I'm in a financial crisis?
So of your 200,000 Rand, we just explained what would be seeded as seed capital would be 10%. It's not more than 30,000 Rand, so you'd get that full 20,000 Rand, which would be seeded into your savings component. Now, you don't have to withdraw that after 1 September 2024. But as you say, if you're in a financial crisis and you really do need the money, you're entitled to withdraw the full balance in your savings component. Just bear in mind, though, that you wouldn't receive that full 20,000 Rand paid into your bank account because, first of all, there's tax payable on that amount. And the tax that's paid on a savings withdrawal benefit is not taxed according to the retirement fund lump sum tables, which are generally at a lesser rate than your marginal rate. Your savings withdrawal benefit is taxed at your marginal rate, the rate that you pay tax on for remuneration and the like. So there's the primary tax payable at your marginal rate on your savings withdrawal benefit. We also know, we've been informed that SARS are going to issue RT88s against those payments. And what that means is it's a deduction for outstanding tax, outstanding interest amounts that you owe to SARS. So if your tax affairs aren't in order and you owe SARS money, that will also be deducted from your 20,000 Rand. And there's also a fee that's payable to the administrator of your fund for processing that benefit. So the 20,000 Rand that's available for you to withdraw, if you do decide to withdraw that as a savings withdrawal benefit, the amount that you actually receive in your bank account will be net of tax payable on that at the marginal rate, any outstanding tax due in terms of an RT88, and any fee that's payable to the administrator of the fund for processing that payment.
Oh, wow. I had no idea that it would be taxed like that. It makes sense because the Minister of Finance actually recently came out and said he's expecting an additional 5 billion Rand in tax or in additional revenue from these from the taxation of this.
Correct. So as part of the same commentary, we heard that they're expecting about 14 billion Rand to be withdrawn in September. Those are amounts that would have been seeded into people's savings component and the actual withdrawals that will be processed. Because as I say, people don't have to withdraw. And we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't say, but that's what's being expected. Somewhere in the region of 14 billion Rand was mentioned being withdrawn, and if that is true, then it would be something in the region of 5 billion Rand that's paid to SARS as tax on those savings withdrawal benefits that are processed. Remember, though, that you're only going to pay the tax if you actually take the savings withdrawal benefit. Those individuals who leave the money in the savings component, you don't have to withdraw it. They won't pay any tax on any benefits. It's only if you actually decide to take the money out.
Going back to the issue of the savings withdrawal benefits, if I have 15,000 Rand accumulated as at the 31st of August, how much am I able to withdraw on the 1st of September?
So Your total savings in your retirement fund are 15,000 Rand as at 31 August. Well, let's apply the formula that we spoke about. 10% of 15,000 Rand is 1,500. So that's your seed capital. That's the amount that goes into your savings component. Now, when it comes to savings withdrawal benefit, there are certain limits on it. And one of them is that the minimum amount that you can withdraw at any time is 2,000 Rand. So unfortunately, in that scenario, you don't actually have enough money to take a savings withdrawal benefit because you haven't got 2,000 Rand as yet. You must remember that seeding capital and the 30,000 Rand that we spoke about doesn't apply to everyone. It's a portion of whatever you actually have. So if you only have 15,000 Rand in your example, you're only going to have 1,500 Rand as your seed capital, which is your starting balance and your savings components. And that's not enough yet to take a withdrawal benefit, unfortunately. You'd have to contribute to the savings component until you got to at least 2,000 Rand. And only then would you actually be able to take your first savings withdrawal benefit.
Okay. And is there ever a time that I can withdraw more than once from my savings components?
So usually it's once a year, and that's in a tax year, by the way. So when we say once a year you're allowed to withdraw, that's in a tax year of assessment, which is from 1 March each year until the end of February, 28 or 29 February. There is a scenario where you can take another withdrawal, and that's if you've taken a withdrawal in that tax year, and then your employment subsequently ends in the same tax year. But the proviso is that you can only take that second withdrawal if the value of your savings components is less than 2,000 Rand. So unfortunately, if you've taken a savings withdrawal benefit in a tax year and you get dismissed from service late in the tax year, if you've got more than 2,000 Rand, unfortunately, you can't even take another withdrawal benefit on the termination of service. It's only in a situation where you leave service in that same tax year and your savings component is less than 2,000 Rand.
And do I get this seed capital that you mentioned at the beginning of this episode? Do I get this every single year?
No, that's a great question, and we've heard it a lot. So that 30,000 Rand is just a once-off, that's why it's the word seed. It's just the seed that starts the savings component. And it's not automatically 30,000 Rand, as we said. It's only 30,000 Rand if you have more than 300,000. You know, in your example, if you have 15,000 Rand, your seed capital is only 1,500 because that's 10%. And whatever your amount is, whether it's 1,500 or the maximum of 30,000, it's important to remember that will only happen once. And that's going to happen effective 1 September 2024, so that everyone has a starting balance in that savings component. Thereafter, especially if you take all of that out as a savings withdrawal benefit, the only amount in your savings components is going to be what you contribute to it. So you're going to build it up almost like a bank balance, but certainly not that a year later would there be another seed capital. After that, it's purely just between what you put into the savings components is what's available for you to withdraw. And obviously, if you haven't taken out your seed capital, that will also still be in your savings components.
Okay, and where does the seed capital come from?
So importantly, it comes from your retirement savings. Nobody else is funding it on your behalf. Remember, it comes from your vested component. So your vested component, like in your example, is 200,000 Rand. That's an amount that you've saved for your retirement. The 20,000 Rand seed capital is going to come out of that and reduce that to 180,000 Rand. And obviously, if you take it out as a savings withdrawal benefit, in the long run, it's going to reduce how much you have at retirement.
Okay, thank you so much for explaining the savings withdrawal benefit a lot more for us. And in the next 2 episodes, we'll be discussing the retirement component and the vested component a lot.
Great.